Okay. Hey, everybody. End of the month. End of the month. Okay. So tomorrow night is the last night of October. It's a really fun month. That's what I remember hitting Sapphire on Halloween night several years ago. So it always brings back fun memories. I know I have a couple of team members pushing for a rank. And I hope that everybody on the call has a goal, whatever it is. It's so amazing what can happen when you apply a little bit of urgency and like a number and a timeline to a goal. You do things you would not have done ordinarily otherwise, and you end up helping people set them free that much faster. So even if you're not within range of a rank, I would just challenge you right now to set some sort of a goal for yourself and commit to hitting it by tomorrow night. And you'll be shocked. Like if you just keep doing that PLP, you keep posting, you keep going live, host a pop-up party, and just keep recycling through that, you'll be shocked the conversations that can start and the people that can be ready to go that you wouldn't have found otherwise. So a little mini challenge there. Let me pray us in quick because we have a lot to cover. I'm really excited about this topic. Dear Lord, oh my goodness, you know how anxious our hearts become when it comes to this topic, managing our homes, managing our careers, our friendships, our health, our families. The anxiety can just flood in. And so I pray your peace and your calm and your wisdom over our discussion tonight. And I just pray hopefulness, because the word says that we may overflow with hope by the power of your Holy Spirit. And this can be a topic of major defeat for some. And we can even begin to take on an identity of I am, I'm awful with time management, or I'm disorganized, or I'm scattered, or I am overwhelmed. But I pray right now to just completely break off any of those identities, because I am overwhelmed is not who you've made us to be. That's not truth. And we want to walk in truth. So I just pray that your spirit, which is a spirit of peace and power, love, self-discipline, all of those things, that would be what characterizes our identity. That we just reinforce that tonight, and that you remind us in times like these, when we feel that overwhelm creep in, that we can begin anew. We can take a step in the right direction. We can change. Please bless our conversation tonight. Thank you so much for the people that are here on this team. It is such a joy to serve them and lead them. And I know they feel the same. Okay. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. So everybody, I want to see some participation in the chat. First question. I want to hear your red dot when you started part one of Brittany's Managing It All. Part 1, 2, and 3 is what we listened to this last week. If you don't know what a red dot is, imagine a map at the mall and you're trying to figure out, like, how do I get to the Gap? And you go up to the map and it's like, you are here, and you can't figure out how to get to the Gap until you find out where you are starting from. It's really important to hone the skill of assessing where you are at, because you cannot get where you're going from where you want to be or where you pretend to be. You can only get where you are going from right where you are starting. So I shared with Megan, like, total confession, I listened to episode 1 and I was feeling so many feelings of inadequacy, anxiety. The word I used was stricken. I felt stricken when I listened to the first part of this series. And she, of course, comes full circle and addresses in part 3 some of this comparison that we might end up doing when you hear or see what somebody else's life looks like, and all of the things that they are prioritizing, fitting into their calendar, getting done with excellence. So when I heard Brittany share all of the things that her children are involved in, and that she's involved in with her business, and that she takes out the time to, personal development and working out and tracking her macros and social life and time with her husband, youth group, children's choir. Did anyone else have a reaction And it doesn't have to be my reaction. I would venture to say if it was 50-50, maybe some of you felt inspired and excited and just motivated and lit on fire. I felt a little overwhelmed when I listened. So I'm looking at the chat right now. I want to see what your red dot was. And a red dot is usually a feeling. Okay. It's not a thought. It's a feeling. So how did you feel when okay, Rachel said overwhelmed. Worried. Yeah. Okay. Megan, thanks for pointing that out. Megan said, worried that people listening would think I don't want that life. I had that thought. I thought God has called me to lead a large team with multiple jewels. I've written that vision down many times. And I had that thought, oh my goodness, do I really want a large team after I've heard all of this? Okay. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. You cannot get where you're going from where you pretend to be. You can only get there from right where you are. So keep it coming. Okay, thank you all. Okay, the next thing I want to hear in our chat, and you guys can chime this in as we talk, because it might jog your memory as we talk. But I would also like to hear, oops, I was on my back page of my notes. I would also like to hear if there are any actions that you've taken so far. Megan and I are really very passionate about action-based coaching. So we 100% believe in our thought model where you dig into the feelings and thoughts and what they're creating for you. And then you decide what you want to create, but not to where you get into a spin cycle, just unpacking the suitcase of your thoughts and leaving it strewn out on the floor all the time. We want to be in action. And so that usually means extracting what's the first baby step? What is something I gleaned from this that I can put into action? We cannot see around the bend. So we have to actually take a step, course correct at that point. So I would also like to know as we chat, any action at all that you have taken since listening to these 3 episodes, any tools that you've implemented. She talks through a lot of them. So I'll chat through some of my takeaways. And then I think Gretchen is going to share a bit. Is that right? Okay. And then Megan's going to share some of her takeaways too. So one thing that she said was when you're headed into a new Plexus month, you really need to pick 3 to 5 business focuses. And she said, it's really more like 3. That's kind of all that your brain has the capacity for, but sometimes it can be 4 or 5. And I was thinking through some examples. So one example I came up with for the month of November, I wrote down enroll 3, 6 or more. So of course you're going to plug in like, what is your personal focus? It may not be 3 this month. It might be 6, might be more. But I would call that maybe 1 business focus. Second focus, create a new business builder. Third focus, earn Punta Cana. Those were the 3 things I wrote down for like 3 focuses for the month of November. And then she just very practically explains that you've got to list out all the activities that will accomplish that focus. And that's where we get down into okay, well, how am I going to enroll 6 people in November? Okay, I'm going to post. How often am I going to post? This often. What kinds of posts am I going to make? Health, business, personal, call to comment. How many times a day? You get into the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts of that. Okay. So that's an example. Or maybe, I'm going to do live videos. Okay. How often am I going to do them? What topics am I going to do them on? Hosting parties, hosting events. What kind am I going to host? A Zoom, a messenger testimony event, in-person sip and see. So that's what I mean when I say you got to really break down what is going to get you to that focus. So super curious if you all do this. Do you all do this every month? Megan says yes. And I know your system is sticky notes. Brittany said her system is a whiteboard. But it's super critical, right? And you almost always hit your goal, your objective, because it's staring you right in the face. She says there are 1,000 ways to win, but you can only pick a few to focus on. That doesn't mean that the others are wrong. You can win very, very many different ways, but you can only say yes to certain things. And you can do it without feeling guilty when you have decided ahead of time, okay, this is my focus for this month. These are the activities that are going to get me there. If other opportunities come in, but they are not going to help me reach those things, I can say no to them guilt-free. So I found that really helpful. Here is something separate from Brittany that I was just thinking about a little bit. She talked a lot in the first episode about figuring out your values so that you can align your calendar with your values. And I wanted us to think about that in terms of percentages, ratios. So like I wrote down, obviously, like we all want a great family life, like a great home family life. We all want a great business, right? That's why we're here. We all want good personal health. We all want to prioritize our spiritual health, and we all want to have, social health. And I consider that like hobbies and friends. And there may be more, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that I thought of. And I really was like, I want to think about this for a minute. So like in the category of personal health, if I am committed to get 7 hours of sleep every night, and I want to get one workout in every day for at least 30 minutes. Okay, then I'm writing down 7.5 hours in the category of like personal health. Go with me on this for a minute. And if I really value my spiritual health and I want to spend, 30 minutes or an hour a day studying God's word. Okay, so let's just say I write down 30 minutes a day, something like that. I would challenge you all to decide, like, how much time do I want to go to these things, and make sure it all adds up to 24 hours, because then later on, when you do a time audit, you're going to be looking for things that are taking way more time than you say you want them to take. So for instance, let me give you an example. A friend shared with me a couple months ago that in order to work out, she drives to the gym, but it's really far away, and then takes a workout class and then drives home. Now, maybe that's meeting some of her social needs too. Only she knows. Like, I can't make this decision for her, but I think helpful to go, I actually only wanted my health to take up this percentage of my life. And oh my gosh, the workout thing is taking 2.5 hours every single day. I think we need to tweak that ratio a little bit. Do you guys see where I'm going with that? I also just think, at least for some of you that I've talked to, the social one, when it comes to hobbies and friends, that one can really balloon quickly. We can start to say yes to everything related to hobbies and friends instead of going, okay, I love my hobbies, I love my friends, but I only want that part of my life to take up 10% or whatever it is. It's up to you. But I would challenge everybody to kind of do a little audit like that. And I have the link. I'll pop it in once I kick it over to you, Megan. But some people are new and maybe haven't done this. We've got a really great sheet that's blank, and it's called the Ideal Week. And it's just Monday through Sunday, every hour of the day. And what it allows you to do, you print it, and it allows you to just log for a few days, like where that time is going. And you actually see, this is when I'm sleeping. This is when I was scrolling. This is when I was supposed to be making lunch, but I was scrolling. This is when you put all of that in there, and you can really get a good snapshot for a couple of days. And it allows you to, I think, align your time a lot better with your values and decide intentionally. So I will link that sheet for y'all. It's a great exercise, but this is what I would watch for. Obviously, for a few days, you're just judgment-free, writing everything down for where your time is going. But once you've done that, here's the idea. It brings awareness, and you're looking for siphons. That's things that are sucking time away in secret that you don't even realize the time is just being siphoned away. Scrolling is a really big example for me, because I'll be doing something I think takes 2 minutes and it takes 25 minutes. So look for the siphons, look for things that are not aligned with your values, or like something that is just totally not aligned with your values that can go, or it is one of your values, but you don't want it taking up that much of your time. Look for that. You're going to also look at things that are important, but they're not being done efficiently. Like they're taking too much time. Great example of that would be like working out is important, but it shouldn't take 2.5 hours of my day. So look for things like that. Oh, yes. Look for things that bring emotions like guilt and frustration. And I'm actually going to tell you, those are useful emotions. I don't recommend just stuffing those emotions right away. I also don't really align with like our cultural message of like guilt is bad, shame is bad. Don't even think about that. Actually, it's very useful. Those are useful emotions. They can usually, if we will dig, if we can get curious with them, they can usually reveal a lot. And so examine the things that induce guilt, examine the things that induce frustration, and get curious. And you'll find, quite a bit underneath there. And then also you're looking, well, I kind of talked about that, looking for where the balance feels off. And then she mentions this several times in the episode, the Pareto principle. So it's the idea that the most important things actually bring like 80% of the return. We'll talk about this more later. But for example, if you have like 10 tasks that feel really important that you want to do. Oh, Megan's taking a picture. Then, get them in order of priority. And if you accomplish the most important two, you will move the needle 80%, and everything else on the list is only going to move the needle 20% more. And that's true in so many areas. Like go back and listen to the episodes for the examples, but so many examples of how that actually is true. Okay. Keep shouting out in the comments. Bonnie said guilt is very different than shame. It's true. They're not the same thing. Okay. So keep shouting out in the comments if you have taken an action from these episodes so far. I want to know what it is. Brittany goes through using her Google Calendar, using her whiteboard, family calendar, using her personal planner, doing a brain dump, doing a weekly rhythm of planning her week. She talks about using the Task app. So as I shout those things out, let me know if any of those you have already started implementing. She mentioned what I said at the beginning, which is when she is determining her values, determining the things that she thinks are important that she wants to put in the calendar, this is usually the moment she begins to feel anxious and overwhelmed. So if the activities you desire to do don't match the hours you have, the first thing to do is stop and pray. I loved that. The first thing to do is stop and pray, because God will not put anything on your plate. You will not have anything on your plate that God has not, if it is something that God has for you to do. I also think the concept of the plate and the table is helpful. So when you feel like you've got way too much on your plate, the imagery of, okay, what do I need to remove from the plate and put on the table? You ever heard that phrase of like, let's table that discussion? So something can still be on the table. It can still be a priority for this week or this month, but not be immediately on your plate. She also goes a lot into do, delete, and delegate. Some things are taking up way too much brain space just because we're overthinking them or dreading them. Like the dread of the thing is taking time. So sometimes we just need to do the thing, just do the thing. And you're like, oh my gosh, that took 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10, but doing it is going to save so much time. Some things truly just need to be deleted from your list. Others can be delegated. And they can be delegated to your children. They can be delegated to an assistant. They can be delegated to, a friend. Maybe you have a friend who you can do a mom swap one day a week. Maybe, and Megan and I have chatted about this in a couple of trainings, but oftentimes the delegating thing, we avoid it because you have to teach the person to do the thing well, and it feels more efficient to do the thing yourself instead. So it is absolutely a discipline to carve the time out to teach your children or teach an assistant or anybody, your spouse even, whatever the thing is. But one big mistake I have made in so many areas is assuming that something should be easy or automatic. And like a great example of that is like children and chores, that if it's not like easy and automatic that they know how to do it, then I'm just like, forget this. Or meal planning and cooking dinners. Like I just, for a long time, even up till very recently, was so frustrated because it wasn't as easy and automatic as I thought it should be. And it required actual learning and planning and discipline. And the same is true with delegating and teaching your children skills, or teaching a childcare person or an assistant skills. It's okay for that to take time. It's okay for it to take teaching, modeling, and practice learning. So when she mentioned how we can feel overwhelmed or anxious when we're starting to populate our calendar, she brought up comparison. And I thought this was really interesting, that comparison can do three things. It can leave you feeling inferior, it can leave you feeling superior, or inspired. So it's not always a bad thing to compare. But in the case of feeling inferior or superior, that's not very useful. But if you are feeling inspired when you see someone else showing you what is possible, then that is a productive use of comparison. Your life does not need to look like mine. My life doesn't need to look like Brittany's. The path that God has me on is to develop my character in obedience to him. And he gives me specifically tailored trials to draw my heart to him and to refine me. So my trials are to refine me. Your trials are to refine you. We are not on the same journey. Let's see here. Okay. And then her third episode, she talked a lot about rest. And so that's what we give ourselves when we do delegate, when we do delete, when we do manage our time well. And she pointed out that rest should be a rhythm, not a reward. Rest should be a rhythm, not a reward. It's important to your productivity. It's important to your health. It is an act of worship. It is an act of faith. I wanted to take a second to plug Cedar Rock here, because there's scholarship available to everyone on this team if you choose to go to a Cedar Rock retreat. They are really powerful retreats that talk a lot of the principles that Brittany talked about. They teach at Cedar Rock, and then they help you really put it into practice. You can multitask, but you can't multi-focus. Very, very helpful, very true. And another tip she gave was blitzing, or getting in the zone. So trying to kind of collect your activities when you're doing a certain thing, do more of that thing in one stretch. And consistency is a productivity hack. Consistency is the most productive thing you can do. And I really like this. This is my last thing. She said, if you want to grow fast, if you want speed, you can add intensity, but you have to add it to consistency. In other words, you've got to figure out what is the bare minimum amount of something I can do and be consistent with it, even on my busiest day. And then if I'm ever intensifying that or adding to that, it's gravy. It's real. You feel really good about yourself, versus setting a really high goal for every day, consistently not hitting it and feeling like you're letting yourself down. That's when you get back into that rut of, I never keep my promises to myself. I always do this. And that spins us into, I'm never going to reach any goal. And so that concept, by the way, is in this book, Tiny Habits. She mentioned several books in this episode, but Tiny Habits is a really good one for creating tiny habits that you can commit to even on your busiest day and build from there. All right, kicking it over to you, Meg.
Hey. Okay. Gretchen, do you have, let's see, are you able to unmute? There you are. Hello.
Yes, I sure am. I sure am. Okay, well, Krista and Megan asked me to share some thoughts tonight with you guys. There's a fair number of you here on the call that I don't know, or that don't know me. So my name is Gretchen. I am a very blessed senior Ruby ambassador, mom of 6 kids that I homeschool. We currently have a high schooler, a junior high, 2 in elementary with special needs, a preschooler, and a toddler who's joining me tonight. So yeah, very, very full life, just like all of you. Your balls might be different that you're juggling, that you're managing, your responsibilities, your callings, but we all have lots of things on our plates. So just wanted to share some thoughts, because this is something that we've talked about, and we're all in the journey learning together. But one of the things I wanted you to encourage you guys to do that I did not think to do for a long time was to actually pray over your schedule, especially when you are feeling overwhelmed or discouraged, or just like it's not where you want it to be. This took me a long time to learn, but I got to a point a couple of years ago where I was sitting down and making my school schedule specifically, and thought, I do not see how this is going to work. I was sitting down with paper, and it was just it was like, this is not coming together. So I just stopped and I prayed about it, because yes, there is time in every day for everything that the Lord wants us to do, not that we want to do necessarily, not that everybody else wants us to do, but the things that are truly from Him. There is time for those things. And sure enough, in submitting that to the Lord, He helped me through, and we found a way, and it worked. It worked. So encourage you to go ahead and pray. It is not too small a thing. It's a big thing. It's a big part of life. It is worth lifting up, asking for insight, asking for creativity, asking for our eyes to be opened to those blind spots or blind areas in our schedules. Yeah, like Brittany said, put your big impact things first. There's that visual picture of the jar and the rocks and the sand. And if you pour the sand in first and try to put the rocks on top, they may not fit. But if you put in your rocks, your big things, your most important things, like Chris was saying, those top two, that top 20%, if you put those things in the jar first and then pour the other things around them, oftentimes a lot more will fit in your jar than if you don't prioritize and you're doing all the fluffy, frittery things and not getting those big rocks in. So yeah, focusing on learning to prioritize. And that might be, if you're newer to the business, that might be an area where your upline, your sidelines can help you. If you're like, well, I don't know what the priority things are, don't be afraid to ask. There's whole trainings on that of what are the top priority things even in different seasons of your business. Plan in backup times. Something that helped me so tremendously over this past year and a half or so. I am a morning person, so I very consistently had a big chunk of IPA time in the morning, but I found that it was always stretching and bumping into my family time as I was trying to wrap things up. So two things that made a big difference for me were setting a 15-minute timer to warn myself, okay, finish up the important things. My deadline time is coming, and this could work with, family things or chores or hobbies, what have you. Anything that seems to be eating up into other time slots where you don't want it to be. Giving yourself that warning to finish up what's important. And then building in some pockets of time. I have a little alarm on my phone. I often like to post first thing in the morning, but sometimes I find that hasn't happened. And so sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm just going to turn on that alarm on my phone. I'm going to make my first post at lunchtime. And it's okay. So just knowing, and it takes it off my brain, knowing, okay, I have another time for that, and it's going to happen in that time. When that time comes, it's a time that I know is a good time for me to make a post, and that alarm goes off. And I just feel like I'm the most accomplished person on the face of the earth because I've respected those boundaries, but I'm still getting those really important things done when I can. So planning in some backup time with, whatever reminders are necessary for you, whatever floats your boat there. leaning into your strengths and leveraging them. I am a routine girl. I love routine. I thrive on routine. Get me set in routine and, consistency. I can do that. And for a long time, that felt like a weakness to me, because the flip side of that is that it's a little bit more of a challenge when something out of routine happens, when there's a new product or a special or this or that. So, but just learning to recognize our strengths and weaknesses and leverage that, and realizing, okay, being good at routine, how can I leverage that to help me in my business? If you're more of a spontaneous person, how can you leverage that when there are specials, when there are changes, when there are things that come up? If you can help your team know what to do when those things pop up that might throw them off track, that is a gift. That is a strength that you can capitalize on yourself, but also share and bless others with as well. So just knowing what things are easy for you and what things are hard, and being prepared. Okay, this is a harder thing for me, but or this is an area where I can learn and grow and improve and not be put off of. Just knowing, okay, I might have a tendency to freeze up, but I don't have to do that, and I'm not going to do that. And leaning into your strengths, but not shying away from the things that are weaknesses either, because we can grow and we can get better at those things. It's just something that was interesting to me to make note of about myself. Here's the question for you. Can other things be nooked and crannied? I'm at a point in my business where I don't want to work it in nooks and crannies. I want to work it in chunks. I want to give it some good focused time, get in the zone, do things. And it was interesting because a while back, I did a time audit, and the thing that was causing me frustration, that helpful emotion at the time, was workouts that I just wasn't exercising. And as I did a time audit, I'm like, well, my time is going in good places and where I want it to go, but there just was not a chunk of time that I could easily see to devote to exercise. And I think I thought cycled it. And in thought cycling it, that just unlocked creativity and freedom. I thought, well, what if I nook and crannied my exercise? I'm not training for a marathon. I just want to get a little exercise in, some movement. I want to stay healthy. It doesn't have to all be in one chunk for me. And so this was before Pivotal, but I downloaded a free exercise app, and I started in those little nuggets of time in my day when I have called my second grader to work on reading, and she has to go to the bathroom first. Instead of sitting there fussing and fuming internally because she's going to the bathroom first when we were going to do this, and now I'm wasting time. Like, fine, use the bathroom, come back when you're done, pop out my little exercise app, and I do the next exercise until she, comes out of the bathroom. And it feels amazing. I'm getting my exercise in. I'm nook and cranning this other thing back into my day, and feeling productive. So yours may not be exercise, but if you're at that point where you're like, yes, I'm beyond the nooks and crannies of my business, what are some other things in your life that could fit into the nooks and crannies and be very successful there? So you'll have your own applications. But anyway, that is pretty much what I had written down, other than the fact that I can hardly wait to try working in the zone. Oh, no, one more thing. I just have one more thing. Yeah, come back to it. There are seasons of life. When Chris was asking, where our red dot was, I put down in flux because I'm in a new little season of my life right now. Hi, you. And so I'm revamping some things. Like, I need to do some things differently. This is working well. That isn't. So this isn't a one-time thing that you figure out forever, because life happens, seasons change. We have babies, we have aging parents, we have this, that, or the other, right? So just know that and don't let that be frustrating to you. I am in a period of flux, which is not my favorite place to be. In a routine person, I like to have my routines nailed down, but it's okay because I know I'm going to keep trying things until I figure out what works for this season. And so excited to try Brittany's idea of batching activities instead of activity switching. That just really resonated with me for this season. So wanted to encourage you guys, wherever you are at, don't give up on your schedule, because there is an avenue in this season of life, whatever that season may be.
Amen. So good. Thank you, Gretchen, for sharing. So pop in the chat if you guys are resonating with things, or if you have questions popping up that we could be fielding as we're on this call. I know sometimes it's a little harder to have conversation style since we're not all in the same living room, but wanted to just agree with the constant evaluation, that it's not a one-time check mark. It's off the list, because life is always ebbing and flowing and evolving, and kids are getting older, and some of us, like some people I know on the team, work a full-time outside the home job, and so your your day is very pre-planned, versus some of us who are at home full-time with children in various seasons. You know, so maybe you're listening or popping on the recording and hearing us talk, and you're in that season of like 3 littles, all under age 3 to 5 or whatever. But I think all of us have our version of 7 kids and homeschooling. That's where I'm at right now. And so plug in your life season, life stage, but knowing, hopefully, as you listen through the podcasts and then hear our discussion here, that you're taking away some little tidbits to go apply. So one of the things that I really resonated with was when Brittany was sharing, was, what is my highest point of contribution? What is my highest level of contribution in my home at this stage? And I just, we've had some come to Jesus moments this weekend, even just chatting through things. And one of the things in my fall semester season that I'm still shifting and working through is just figuring out like the household routine, right? And so I really thought that we could manage the household routine just on our own. Team golf, we can knock it out and get it done. Well, easier said than done. It is not working right now. And I verbalized to Justin, like, that is a kind of an unconscious area of stress for me, because it's not getting done. We've just come through a season of volleyball and soccer. So our like nooks and crannies extra time is not there. And so my plan to like pay Madeline, like I'd rather pay one of my kids to like top to bottom clean the house. But what I've realized is it's not working. And so Maddie and I spent the whole afternoon on Friday cleaning, which was fine. And I don't mind doing the work, but it's not my highest level of contribution in this moment. I decided, you know what, I'm going to have my Amish ladies come back, even if it's once a month, and then Maddie maintains on the other things. Just like a weekly maintenance. That way it's not taking quite as much time. And I also I'm not guilted into, I feel bad that she's cleaning, I need to help her type of thing. So all of us have those little spaces where maybe there's unconscious stress feelings around something. So evaluate those. Sometimes I've just brain dumped, like, what right now in my life feels stressful or frustrating or overwhelming. Sometimes it's not a million things. It's like 3 things. And just getting them down on paper and being able to verbalize, even to your husband or someone else that could just like hold the mirror and be like, oh, here's a solution. Like, here's an easy way to overcome whatever it is, right? It could be household things, right? And so, even Abigail, being in a new stage, and she's not a hard toddler, thank the Lord, because I've had a string of boys that have been possibly destructive, and some of them, we're still working on that. So thankfully she's not, she's great. She's great. And so she's just bebopping around. But what I've noticed is like we've absorbed some of the tasks that I was delegating to a helper that was coming in a couple days a week. So, the things that for me even are shifting and changing, and we're evaluating things over here too. So, notice when things are feeling a little stressful to you, because it may be something really, really, really simple that you can tweak. Okay, all that to say, we'll wrap up here. I'll check the chat real fast, but hopefully, yes, hopefully this is encouraging to you guys and not overwhelming, but giving you ideas if you're feeling whatever about your schedule, or how do I fit all the things in. So we have a couple of homeworks. And so hopefully you've been listening with your specific circumstances in mind, extrapolating the actions that you need to take to be even more efficient in your life and in your business. And so whatever pivots those might be. I have 3 different options for homework. So Carissa did pop the link in for your ideal week. I know we've done this on Jessica Heffley's Jewel calls before, and it's a really, really useful exercise, and I would highly recommend doing it. So between now and next Tuesday, and if you're going on the cruise, you may give yourself some extra leeway time to do that because a lot of us are going to be gone. So you want to do this obviously when you're home and can kind of track where your time goes, but you can at least fill out your ideal week with where you would like all your time to be going. And then you're going to follow yourself around for a couple of days and just log where where your time actually goes. And then you can do a side-by-side comparison. No judgment. It's just more like, okay, let's just take a peek at this. So highly recommend doing that just as a useful exercise. I know all of us that did that a few months ago or whatever, last year, this time, very helpful. And thinking through what can you do, delete, and delegate. So remember those 3 Ds from John Maxwell. Okay, the second option for homework is to establish a routine or schedule, whatever word you like to use, and make sure that you have protected plexus hours popped in there. I know some people really balk at schedule or routine, but I know some people really, that's their struggle bus. And so if you don't, at least in your daily routine, in your 24-hour day, if you don't have protected plexus hours penciled in, I would highly encourage you to start doing that, because that whole idea of instead of nook and crannying all the time, you may find that it brings you actually more peace and joy in your business to be able to work in a chunk and then close the book, close the door, whatever, and go live your life. Okay. And then the third option I put down is consider the discipline of planning, like planning ahead. And so some of you are like light years ahead on this. Some of you may never do it and you're like really spontaneous and willy-nilly, but it may bring you more peace to plan ahead. So for example, I just wrote down planning out your week, meal planning, or even just jotting down on a sheet of paper, like the meal options, even if you don't assign them a day, and to make sure that you've done your grocery run for the week and you have all your ingredients. I don't know about you guys, but that is such a like peaceful way to start my week when that stuff is already thought through and I don't have to waste brain space during the day thinking about that. So any mental real estate that is taking up unnecessary space in your head, if you can get it down on paper or plan ahead for it or whatever it is, I would say that has been massively helpful in just my mothering and with homeschooling and with having an entrepreneurial business, all the things. So those 3 options for homework is what I would suggest, recommend, encourage you guys all to do, or do all of them. If you guys are really feeling like you resonate with all 3 of those action steps, do all of them, because I promise it will help you get some clarity on where your time is going and how to be efficient with the time that God has granted to us.
Hey, I thought of one other thing I wanted to chime in. Another Elizabeth Elliot.
Mm-hmm.
One little phrase that she said in one of her podcasts was without haste and without sloth, which is a funny way to pronounce it, but it actually stuck in my brain because of that. And so I don't even need it to be a full sentence. I just need to repeat to myself sometimes that God's designed me to live a life without haste and without sloth. And so, you know, as we are filling our calendar and as we are going throughout our days, that's the idea. Jesus was relaxed. Mm-hmm. He was not in a hurry. He had exactly the right things on his plate for the right time. And so, sorry. So sometimes I just repeat little things to myself like that. We all have our elevated thoughts that we like to practice. And on days where I feel frantic and restless and rushed, or on days where I'm feeling a little guilty because I'm being slothful and I'm not getting things done because I'm avoiding hard things and doing, froofy, what did you say, Gretchen Frittery things. That is a helpful little mantra for, you know, both ends of that spectrum. So I wanted to share that. I have not shared that on a call yet, but it has been really profoundly helpful to repeat to myself.
Yes, good. And I'll just say, I actually, this maybe seems OCD, but I actually will put, even though my days are very similar, it helps my brain to actually put where my time is going on my planner. And then I have my to-do list. That way the night before I can brain dump and I don't have to keep it up here. And I just recently started a new homeschooling system, which involves just a notebook for each kid, a notebook paper for each kid, and all their tasks of what they need to do each day. And then they have to put check marks by each thing. That way I'm not keeping all of that in my brain space all day, every day, trying to figure out. So it's just sometimes just simple things that can make such a big difference in us having a peaceful home, peaceful life, and not being slothful or too hurried. It's so good. And I just wanted to reiterate for the recording that a Brooke Hemingway quote is, "Success is scheduled, period." And so when we don't have it written down, we're not intentional, like Brittany was talking about, with our time and with our life, we fritter our time away, and we don't want to be doing it. So, all right, guys, thank you for popping on. Thank you for Carissa and to Gretchen for sharing what you shared. I know it will be a blessing to all the ones that hit the recording also, or get the recording. And we're looking forward to ending the month strong. So go for those goals. We're going to be chillaxing on this cruise here pretty soon. And those of you who aren't going on that one, but are working toward the Punta Cana one, you are in for a treat, because Plexus trips are amazing and they're worth working towards. So with that, guys, thanks for popping on. You guys have a great end of month. See you soon.